Hey, let's talk about Jck da Bdlss, first in the Galactic Melu trilogy by Jln My, 1991 science fiction novel by this American author who was born in 1931 and died in 2017. This is set mostly in sort of like 2051 Earth, which is kind of on the cusp of perhaps being accepted into the Galactic Melu, a collection of alien races that have made their presence known in 2013 and the intervention. Don't you think the Earth needs an intervention? I sort of do. Sort of a kind of a galactic EU organization that hopes to raise Earthlings to kind of a into a collective kind of consciousness bundle, I guess, is called the Unity, where it seems like there's some fears that this is going to suck all the independence out of human beings or something like that. At least that's some of the fears of some of the protagonists. The book itself centers around the pregnancy of Teresa Remillard. The very Remellards are a family just full of these people. All have psychic powers. That is the big, I guess the big thing about this book, written in 1991, but having a very 70s feel of like everyone's got all these people have super powerful psychic powers that they could basically control. They can control almost each other, but easily regular little plebeian human beings. They have some kind of telekinesis, I think, is in there as well. Yeah, there's a variety of powers that they all have. And so Teresa is giving birth, but she's having a illegal birth because of the Remellards family and the presence of, while they have all these great powers, they also have a lot of basic genes that would just like end up with children that wouldn't survive. So under the care, the rule of the aliens, they're not allowed to, but she goes ahead and has it because she feels like she's going to have the greatest child ever through the thing. Through Jack, this sort of kind of Christ-like figure. So yes, it centers around her pregnancy, then giving birth to Jack, the title Jck da Bdlss, and then attempts on Jack's life by some mysterious figures that are, one doesn't seem to even actually have a physical manifestation, and then called the Fury, and then another creature called Hydra, which is its particular properties are a part of the mystery that slowly gets unrolled through the book. You have Uncle Raji, who is kind of a low-level psychic member of the family, but has the immortality gene, and Mark, who is a young cousin of the soon-to-be-born Jack, who has got kind of high-level psychic abilities, and they conspire together to help Teresa to give birth to Jack, and then to Jack's protection going along. This is a really fucking creepy book from my perspective. That is how, just general overall thing is like, ew, this is a gross book, in the sense that yes, the Remillard family, and so that means like basically all the main characters, Mark, Jack, Uncle Roji, Teresa, they all have these psychic powers which allow them to have absolute control over regular human beings, who they seem to basically, they view as dispendable, as trash, as something that they could just scramble the mind of, and they don't care. I've read other stories where, yeah, all these people would be the villains, the holy shit kind of the terrified, but no, in Jln My's world, there's the heroes, who are not much different than the villains in their attitudes towards regular beings or human beings, are basically are the same. So that in itself, right off the bat, it was just like, holy crap, these are evil motherfuckers. Why are we siding with them? Except maybe that you think that they're the higher next evolution of human beings, and that thus you should have some allegiance to them, versus you're thinking, this is these are disturbing beings. However you want to think of it. There is the bizarre racial politics of this book. You learn as you go along reading that it's Celtic people who have the greatest concentration of these psychic powers. And the people from Africa and Asia are the least likely to have this next evolution in humanity. Is they have the least amount. So the book has basically got built in the mythology of the book is built in white supremacy, which is gross. And just like, okay, that's another level of this kind of Ayn Randian kind of will to power kind of bizarre stuff. And and I mentioned that the Galactic Melu, these aliens, they come off as like kind of the EU. So you get the sense throughout the book that you have not all the human beings are against the this about joining this Galactic Melu, but they seem to be the ones who are kind of most thirsty to kind of be collaborators and gain power in the new hierarchy. Whereas you have what I think you would consider the heroes are kind of rugged libertarian individualists going up against kind of this evil socialist kind of caste government. So it's very American book that way. If you're a Brit, I think this would be like, Brexit of like, that fucking EU can't control us. But there's like kind of anti-collectivist, anti kind of like, oh, we should be like, we're all the super wealthy, the super rich, the super powerful in our heads. So fuck them, fuck everybody else. We should be the ones who should have control, not we should for our own enrichment. This is the 1% kind of thing, saying like, we don't need a healthcare or anything like that. We're fine. It's like, yeah, because you're the 1% who is super wealthy and super powerful. So there's probably a political stance here that very much I am taking against, other than kind of the racist and the just weird kind of will to power kind of stuff like that. The whole thing of Teresa's pregnancy with Jack. Jack is, because he's the super high evolved creature. He as a fetus, he can communicate with his mother. He's fully mentally developed as a mother. As a very kind of early fetus, he can talk with his mother, and he really comes across as this scary little amoeba inside of her belly at this point. But so you get that whole thing of like, oh well, they hide her away because they don't want they want them to abort the child against the mother's own choices. But you get into this whole thing of like, of a political thing would come up of like, and especially in the 1990s is already there, of the whole thing of conception means personhood, and women shouldn't be allowed to make choices about their bodies. Of course, they cast it as, oh, this woman does want to make a choice, and the evil government is preventing her from making her own choice there. So there is that. This book was published in 1991. And it's perhaps because Jln May had kind of a delayed career. This book was like, she was probably in her early 61, maybe 60s when it was actually published. It's got it feels like a book that should have been written in the 70s. The psychic powers, and also just kind of the very kind of, it reminds me of kind of Robert A. Heinlein's kind of very kind of a telling, not showing kind of discursive style. She also wrote entries in, I think, for the science fiction kind of Encyclopedia Britannica, basically. So she's got that kind of a style going, and I mean, she's good at that kind of writing, but it's very much it feels like very much a kind of an older style. So yeah, this I do not know whether if I would read on. I am somebody who likes to bounce off of what I think are books that are really counter to how I feel about stuff. And I mean, kind of the libertarianism, the racist stuff. I mean, she is safely dead, so I wouldn't be actually supporting her with my money. I don't know if I want to support her with my time. It's Yeah, and I mean, just the weird kind of relationships in the book, like the characters. I don't really. I think Jack and Mark have probably the most kind of most kind of interaction of a story, but even then it's kind of, oh, we are men, even though we're kind of, one's a teenager and one's like freaking, spoiler alert, he actually does live, but it's they're just weird kind of like godlike creatures in a way that that would squash you like a bug. It's hard to feel any empathy for them. I think probably the most empathetic character in the book is Uncle Roji, who is basically just their pet. And he's somebody who actually, he does have limited powers, but even he is just like a pet for these creatures. So it is a bizarre, I find it a bizarre book, a very alienating book, a book of like, oh, this is like, Ayn Rand part two kind of thing. And I haven't read any Ayn Rand, but I get that kind of sense of like, we're walking gods upon the earth and we look down upon you mortals as ants. And it's just like, okay, that's fine. I'm gonna back away slowly. It's just, it's disturbing, but it's disturbing in semi fascinating sort of way. So if you get your kicks on that, or if you completely disagree with me politically, maybe you'd be totally into this book on a libertarian front. On the various other just fucking bizarre ways that this book is. It was an interesting read. It was an interesting read. I can see why this is not, at least at this point in our culture, getting ushered back into the mainstream anytime soon. I can see why it's kind of a pushed off to the side. It's got enough stuff to in it to you can see why it's pushed off to the side to be maybe studied with tweezers. All right, that's my thoughts on Jck da Bdlss by Jln My. More videos later.